like to call this special meeting of the Raton City Commission to order, please. Could we have roll call, Des?
Sure. Mayor Sagata.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Chatterley.
Present.
Commissioner Schuster.
Present.
Commissioner Giacomo.
Present.
And Commissioner Honeyfield.
Here. Y'all please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, thank you. We're here for 2 items and then public comments regarding the budget. Item 4, deliberate and act on engineering analytics second annual renewing of consulting services agreement. Mr. Messers.
Mayor and Commission, as you know, the City of Raton and Engineering Analytics executed a consulting services agreement on the 15th day of April 2023. Article 6 of the Terms of Agreement states that this agreement is in effect for a base period of 1 year and may be renewed for 3 optional renewal periods. This is to exercise option year 2 on this agreement with Engineering Analytics.
Thank you. Any comments, questions for Mr. Mestis?
Motion to approve the Engineering Analytics second annual renewal of consulting services agreement.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, deliberate and act on landowner concurrence form to install structural or vegetative activities for Raton Family Farms LLC located at 420 East 4th Avenue. Mr. Messers.
Mayor and Commission, Raton Family Farms has applied for a grant with the U.S. Department of Agriculture for approximately $50,000 to $60,000 in value to add high tunnels, irrigation pipeline, and nutrient management to the property, the Armex property. This falls within the LEDA agreement, and the city recommends that you approve this application.
Comments, questions for Mr. Mestis?
I will move to approve the landowner concurrent form to install structural or vegetative activities for Raton Family Farms LLC located at 420 East 4th Avenue. Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, public comments regarding the fiscal year 26 budget. This time we'll take any comments from the public regarding the fiscal year 26 budget that is upcoming. It'll be followed by a work session with the commission. So at this time, we will take any comments from anyone wishing to address the commission. Please come to the podium, state your name, and try to be as brief as possible. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, Commission. Good morning to the public of Raton. I'm Judge Piancino, Raton Municipal Judge. I just want the Commission to be aware of something that I just found out when I came back from Judges Conference. For the first time since 2019, the Municipal League is putting on a court clerk conference. However, they want to charge what I think is too much for a registration fee, $300. If registered after July 3rd, it'll be $350. I do know that the president of the Judges Association is going to try to meet with the Municipal League either today or tomorrow, because at the meeting on Monday at the training, we all I didn't know what the fee was at that time. I just knew it was excessive. But when I saw that it was $300 for the first time in 5 years, when I know that every municipality pays fees to be a member of the Municipal League, I honestly believe that that is a little too high, and I think that the executive, legislative, and judicial branches should get together and contest it. That's all I need. Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a note that New Mexico Municipal League charges fees for all of their conferences, for every one, so. Anyone else? Okay, no other public comment. Mr. Messers, what do you got for the budget?
Mayor and Commission, we'd like to discuss this year's budget. on upcoming projects. And this is a follow-up to the planning session that we had 2 months ago, I guess it was. And we would like to prioritize what we're going to be spending money on and take a look at the budget. Ms. Antonucci, do you have any opening remarks before we get into the discussion?
Yeah, I have just a handout that I'll give to the commission, and then we can discuss it a little bit more. Just some general discussion today. I'm going to give you an updated grant spreadsheet so we can kind of discuss some of the grants that we're closing out this year and some of the projects that look like they won't be complete by the end of this fiscal year. So there may be some things that we include in the interim budget. If we do complete them by June 30, then they would just come out of the final budget that we submit in July. So as we discuss the interim budget today, we're really trying to prepare a good working draft. So hopefully we can make some determinations today how we want to approach the draft. A big part of that we'll discuss here in a bit will be what % increase for salaries for the non-union employees, and then we'll review the increases that'll take effect for the union contracts as well. I think this year we did see a decrease in our small cities assistance, and so that one's always kind of an unknown. So we kind of will talk a little bit about how we want to approach that in this year's budget, and then potentially where we feel GRT, if it's going to go up slightly. I think what I'm seeing in the handouts that I gave you, a lot of the projects that we anticipated for FY25 really are just starting now. So I think the impact on the gross receipts for those projects will occur in FY26. So actually I put anticipated projects for FY25, it's 26. So those are just some of the things that I'd like to discuss as we conduct the workshop today. We know that our salaries are 70 to 75% of the budget, so that doesn't always leave a lot left over for capital equipment purchases. We are working with each department head on their individual budget worksheets, and so I still need a little bit of time to review what they turned in to me last week and come up with a good list of the capital equipment that they would be requesting for the next fiscal year. I think another big hit to the budget potentially will be health insurance increases. I would suggest that we do probably a minimum 10% annual increase. That would have a fiscal impact of about $77,000. And then we will also see some increases from our municipal league dues. It's a small increase, but the premiums for property will also go up. I know you had mentioned, yeah, so that's kind of when I ran the figures. Ours came out to about 16%, so about $24,000. We still will receive a discount, but I noticed it said 20% discount, whereas in previous year it was a 25. So slightly less discount on liability premiums, and we will continue to get a 75% discount on workers' comp. Did see kind of a significant increase in our law enforcement liability. Just in quick math, it looked like it was going up about 30%.
That's a new one on the ad.
It's kind of just consistently gone up every year. So it's a little over $70,000, I believe. Sorry. So we do pay quite a bit in law enforcement liability. They're quoting us $82,213. and then we would take off the 20% discount from there. So that is a pretty significant hit to the budget as well. So those are just kind of some of the quick analysis that I've done on the things that I think will impact our budget the most. I'm sure the city manager has some other things that we've probably discussed. But I think the big thing that we would like to discuss today is how we're going to approach any type of annual increase to employees that are non-union. And you'll see I've kind of detailed out some options there, 3, 4, and 5%. We've also, in prior years, the union increase for Public Works last year was 10%. This year it'll be 2%. Fire department, prior year was 10%. This year is a 2%. And then the police department, I don't know, that's a typo, a dollar sign. Let's see. So we had a 14% in FY24 and a 2% in FY25. So they'll also get another 2% in FY26. I apologize, I have all kinds of little typos in this spreadsheet here. So yeah, effective 7/1/26 would be 2% across the board for the 3 different unions. So
The municipal league fee increase, how many dollars are we talking about?
it was like 3%, so I think it was really like $325. It wasn't a significant amount.
Okay, and so the discounts on the liability and workman's comp, how many dollars is that? I'm having a hard time comparing the percentages to dollars.
Yeah, you know, the quote that they give me, let's see if I could do some quick math here. And we have to keep in mind too, the quote that they give us, we split our insurance coverages with water and RPS. So I do kind of a complicated spreadsheet to break out everybody's premium based on number of vehicles, number of buildings, the value of the buildings. So I don't have it broken out quite that detailed just yet, but when we get the invoices in July, then I'm able to break it out exact. But let's see, they did give us the aggregate amount prior to the discount, and then the discount. So our discount is about $68,494. So premium aggregate amount is $342,470, and then minus the 20% premium discount, it comes out to $273,976. So that's about a savings of just slightly less than $70,000. And then in addition to that, our total premiums, including workman's comp, comes out to closer to $488,000 a year.
So that 488 is everything,
Mm-hmm.
the liability and the workman's comp?
Yeah. And RPS has a separate workman's comp policy.
In
But
our
that's
share,
the only thing that's separate.
in our share of the gross receipts tax off of that 16 million would be about what?
A little over 2, let me see. Hold on. Let's see if I have my little,
About 2%?
it's a little over 2%. I think I have a chart here that breaks it out. No. Yeah, I didn't bring that chart with me, but let's see.
Well, the mayor's thinking it's about 2.08%, so we said 2%.
It's a little over 2%.
Okay.
I just don't know the exact percent.
15,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be on top of what is our base? gross receipts outside of these projects.
Could you say that again?
The base gross receipts for just retail sales and,
What do we generally bring in on a year?
outside of these projects.
I guess I'm gonna have to go grab some more files from my office. I didn't bring,
Don't have enough numbers here.
unless anybody has their financial report from the last meeting. You know, we could do some further discussion. I could run to my office and grab that report off my desk. But, yeah, let me go grab a few more reports and then we can have a little bit more in-depth discussion. I'll let Rick
Okay.
go ahead and cover for me while I step out.
Do you want to discover non-union salaries first? Okay,
Do we know our last year's non-union percentage?
it was 4%.
4?
Now, Michael Ann and I did some analysis, and based on the cost of living, we are still down approximately 8.5% of what our employees have been receiving and what they're getting. So, you know, we're still underpaying our employees quite a bit. And as you know, both the police, fire, and public works did receive, within the last 2 years, in excess of 10% raises.
And I was gonna say too, our utilities over history have outperformed our.
One of the other things that I want to bring into this equation is that with the increase of insurance last year, you know, even with that 4% raise, our employees didn't really see any great addition to their pay increase. Do you guys want my recommendation?
I'm not opposed to a 5%
I mean,
myself.
There we are.
it looks like we have funding through, increased GRT through construction that can well cover that and construction projects in the future to keep that money. That's always my concern too as we look forward.
I guess I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Sure.
I'd line out, Kearney Film Schools, Schuler Electric. Where are we at with Electric Vault? Have they even come up?
So are you talking about the airport?
Yeah, because I know we were waiting on the thing to be manufactured and.
Where did Jaden go?
He had to
Okay.
step away from.
Because
I believe that in Michael Ann's office right now, we have contract document books for 2 projects that are airport related. So
One is the runway,
one is the runway, I'm assuming.
and I think the other one's the vault. We didn't get funding for the apron. So those are, I mean, you know, what you're looking at there, funded, like, for example, Kearney School and those, that we already received a lot of those funds.
well, but I mean, we're not, in light of the bids that were received and whatnot, the likelihood of finishing this in 25 is,
Oh, no, we're probably, that's,
that's
in this
what I'm
FY,
saying is
yeah.
I'd cut that 15 million number in half. Because I just don't see some of this stuff being finished in 25.
No, but we'll be spending money on it.
Yeah, but being a numbers guy, I'd like to know more of what that number would be, not something too optimistic.
Hey, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, Commissioner. So that, she said there's a typo there, it's supposed to be fiscal year 26, so this should be funds expended. My understanding by the end of next June.
Yes, this is next year's funding, I'm
But
sorry.
not by December.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
And actually, that'd be, our FY ends in June, so.
So not till the end of June 26.
So the taxiway project, though, that has been awarded.
I signed some documents.
Yes,
for
the
that.
taxiway has been,
Okay, and that was Northern Construction that had gotten that?
Yes, Northern.
Okay. So I mean, in all likelihood, that one would be finished.
and the vault should be finished too next year, right?
Yes, not by June 30 this year,
But
but
June
I
30
think
next year.
they're in the process of doing the notice to proceed. And I don't know, Jason, do you know how quickly the taxiway B project could?
I've never seen them go over 365 days on base contract. I mean, if they're gonna do airport work, I would expect if it's asphalt related, it to be asphalted out by November, or if not prepped and ready.
And
to
that's
go
just
first.
phase one of two. I think the total project will exceed 3 million. So there's a good possibility in the next fiscal year we would be bidding out phase two. But I don't foresee that one to have an impact until FY '27. Keep in mind too, we do have a special location code for the airport in Lake Maloya. It's not the city's tax rate because that is not annexed into the city, so it's at the county's tax rate. But in doing so, that ensures that the city gets our appropriate percent of the gross receipts on those projects. And this will be the first really large project we've had since we implemented that new tax code. So going back to your previous question, the city's share of the gross receipts, so we're at 8.2583%. And then it would be received by the city of Raton. It's 4.025. So the city's portion is 2.8%, and then we get a 1.225 back from the state, that the state share GRT. So with the cities and the states, it's 4.025.
But our net take is 1.25,
The 2.8%,
2.8, okay.
and then, yeah, and then the state share is 1.225. I did have the clerk just pass down to you a spreadsheet that we've kept over the years. It's a chart that kind of shows you the trend of the gross receipts over the years. Some of the increases, may have been attributed to fluctuations in the tax rate itself. But I think in the years where it's kind of peaked the most would be attributed to a lot of construction going on in the area. And of course, the online gross receipts has helped as well. And looking at last month's financial report, we had reported to the commission that we were currently 1.7% above the budget projection, which is actually pretty good as of March 31st. So we're exceeding that budget projection. I don't know where we'll end up at the end of the fiscal year, but I don't think that we will end up below the budget projection. And that's pretty good considering that a lot of these projects that we just talked about didn't really materialize or start in FY '25. So we were really kind of anticipating those projects. I think we had done a 5% GRT projection increase. So, it might be conservative to, we could stay flat or we could do a 1 to 2% GRT increase, but that would be something that we could discuss.
Yes, some questions.
ma'am.
So, Michael Ann, am I to understand that roughly according to this information that between the health insurance and the property insurance and the law enforcement liability increase, we have about $100,000 in increases in those kind of things compared to last year? And then my other question is on the Kearney Film School. That's a huge chunk of that. That's 6.1. What are we really thinking here? Not just for you on timeline, is that going to happen by the end of, is all that money gonna be expended and constructed by that time, or are we thinking a portion of that? What's realistic?
We went back to our only bidder, and we asked them to take a look at what they're doing and what they're projecting, and if it could be adjusted. So they're in town last week, and they took a look at the facility. So we're waiting to hear back from that. But, you know, we have to stay within our budget. And so I'm fairly confident that, you know, whatever we're going to do, you know, it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
So you think we'll get some substantial work done in the next fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So to me, with that, it seems very fair that the percentage from construction will cover these increases.
And I guess,
and potential.
you know, one of the other things, I didn't include any potential capital outlay that was awarded from this legislative session.
So we have 2 million coming from Sugar Reap for the new visitor center there. And
Realistically, that's probably, anything spent next, this is probably gonna be on design.
Yeah.
No construction, but
Yeah.
well, depending on if we take an existing building.
Well, this is true. This is true.
So, you know, we have to make that decision. The overpass two, the 25 million bridge construction. That
Exit
came last year,
451.
451, the Clayton Highway.
Do we know that that'll start in a way? I'm assuming that it was to start in FY '25, but I haven't heard anything.
We were
Well, we-
30% complete on designs when we had our meeting, I don't know.
I mean, they're starting the art.
60% as of a couple days ago,
Okay.
so, I mean, it'll probably start somewhere in FY '26, but that's the bulk of it.
And the school?
School probably bulk of it in FY '27 and '28.
Yeah, so I kind of left those off because even if they started in late FY '26, it really wouldn't have an impact probably till FY '27. And I mean, that, you know, would be a huge amount of windfall gross receipts when both of those projects start. But once again, as we've talked in the past, you know, we need to have, you know, a tax base that can sustain our staffing levels and any increases that we make. It can't just be from windfall GRT.
So,
And then the other component would be the Maverick, not just construction, but we would see an increase in the gross receipts. So even though a lot of the food product that they sell would probably be tax exempt, the city still gets our percent of the GRT because we've been held harmless on those exemptions for food. So we still do get whatever GRT that they would have collected. So the state still has to remit that to us.
so with this salary increase that was discussed, how many dollars?
So just quick math, a 3% for the non-union is roughly 44,283, 4% 59,044.65, and a 5% would be 73,805.81. And that would just be the hit to the general fund. Once I prepare the salary schedules, then I would incorporate, you know, the 2% for the union employees as well.
And so coupling those together, now what kind of numbers are we talking about?
I couldn't really say till I get the actual schedules done.
Okay.
So at a minimum, that would be the fiscal impact for a 3, a 4, or a 5%. And then, of course, you know, what Lori mentioned, if you total up the other increases for health insurance and property and liability.
Well, I know this sounds a little hokey, but isn't the workman's comp premium based on salary dollars? So as those salaries increase, that premium increases?
You are correct. So when we submit to self-insurers fund, we do an estimated payroll amount, and then they have codes assigned to the various positions. So some positions are higher risk than others. And so once we build that spreadsheet, then the premium would be based on all of that. So yes, that does have a direct impact on the workman's comp premium as well. And so we estimate that, and then the league self-insurers fund does kind of an audit at the end of the year, and then they'll decide if we overpaid or underpaid, and so there could be some sort of an adjustment at the end.
Now, I guess same question on the health insurance. Is that based on salary or just position or type of work?
No, there's no effect on the health insurance premium, so everybody pays. Now, I mean, some entities, like maybe the hospital, schools, I don't know, some of your higher earning employees pay a higher percent. The city is an 80-20, so we pay 80% of the employees' health plan across the board for everybody.
Okay.
It's not based on salary.
Are we going to be discussing at all general fund reserve usage today, or is that for the future discussion?
No, we could certainly, that would help me. I think what's going to happen is I build this draft budget, is I try to kind of leave some of that out of the budget initially, so that I can get a balanced budget, and then I can say, okay, we're going to dip into reserves for this amount. So in the previous year, the commission, I think the figure was about 1.3 million is, I think, what we were anticipating. Some of that was related to pickleball, abatement expenses, the city hall repairs. We had the HVAC for education, and then, of course, the purchase of like public works and animal control trucks. And then we also had the Coors building stabilization repairs. And park improvements.
Do we have, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering here.
And just, you know, at the last meeting, we had discussed what our ending cash balance was in the general fund. I still do have a few reimbursements, like we've discussed, the HUD grant. I would like to get a reimbursement submitted and get those funds received before the end of the fiscal year, but our ending cash balance was just a little over $5 million. We have moved $1 million of that into a CD. But I think that if I look at last year's budget, we had projected an ending cash of about $4,289,000.
Because I think on that CE rate, you'll spin off 40,000.
Yeah, about $42,000. So we have some additional income from that as well.
I guess what I'm pondering here, though, either a lower and high or a median salary for like public works versus fire department versus police department. I guess I still get the cringe whenever I know what the street and parks guys make. It's like I couldn't live on that. But,
So those are the union contracts, is that what you're talking about?
well, I'm just defining them by departments. I don't know which is union and which isn't, but Jason's guys, we should be paying for their lunch every day for what we're paying them, but But if we can get a comparison here as to.
Jason, most of your guys are union, correct?
We're probably 60 union. I mean, in my department, you know, the term manager is kind of a misnomer. I'm the only office boy in this crew. My guys are working managers. My part foremen are probably around $21 an hour. They're on call and in the trenches. I've got a superintendent that's worth a little more than that, a diesel mechanic, but I couldn't pay enough to justify what he's worth, but he's one of the best there is. And, you know, I mean, I would forego on my account, you know, straight across the board numbers are great, but I mean, if I had to take a two to give the three most underpaid people in my management crew a 7, I'd gladly take it. I mean, there's an economy of scale, and maybe I'm just bad at economics and should argue for myself, but my guys work hard and they're not paid well, but these are people that are placed on call. With me in it, I think we're on a 5-week on call where all weekend long you don't leave the city of Raton. We don't pay you for being on call. So I mean, some of this I like to have the flexibility within my own budget. Some based on merit, some just based on need. You know, I mean, I think my lowest paid guy, $2 versus $1 for somebody like myself makes more difference to them. But you know, and I'm sure it's similar. You know, police and fire. I don't think any of us are really top heavy and executive side of things. But the difference between management and labor is just who gives out the orders when we're on a job site. But they're working side by side in every snowstorm, every trench for the most part.
I kind of voicing Jason's thing, that's where I'm kind of going with this, is it's like, we haven't been kind to our bottom end.
No. No, and that's what I was trying to say earlier. I know over the last 8 to 9 years, the utilities have always received much more in an increase than our city staff.
I mean, the reality is for 6, 7 years, you know, I've lobbied for more staff, but I know our budget well enough to know that one person is a $60,000 hit and we don't have that. So I would prefer to make the lives better of the small crew that I have than to stretch. We'll use temporary summer help, fill the gaps and try to be efficient, but I wouldn't even ask for that this year. I just know we're projected 1% above right now. We don't flat at the end of this calendar year. It would just be silly for me to ask for help with that.
The other thing I wanted to remind the commission, we do have the 2 recruitment fund grants. We have police and fire. So police will be in year 3 of their recruitment fund grant. So we'll only get about $56,250 for the year 3 grant. Now fire during the legislative session, year 2 was supposed to be 50%. And it's now going to be 75%. So I'll need to factor that into the general fund budget as well.
And you say those drop out next year altogether?
Unless DFA has additional funds allocated for that, we would certainly reapply.
I think you'll see the same trend as far as capital requests go. I mean, I'll probably ask for 2 pickups in the fleet, both base model, lower end pickup, one which will come out of solid waste reserves and one out of general fund reserve. Other than that, no loaders, backhoes, anything. Decided that I secured a hand-me-down backhoe from RPS this morning that I can use.
I was just going to tell you that.
Transfer station. You know, around here, that's good enough. I mean, I think one thing that you all and we do is respect the taxpayer money, so you know, we try to safeguard it. It's new to us, but it's good enough to do what we need it to do.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say, got you back last night, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
The other thing, I do not know what the impact will be. I just know in talking to Commissioner Trujillo from the county, during some of our financial advisory meetings, there have been some changes to property tax with veteran exemptions. And so the county feels that this is going to affect their property tax. What effect that has on the portion that the city gets, I do not know. We generally print the reports off of DFA's website and go off of what the values were for residential and non-residential based on our mill levy rates. So I'll pull those reports and do those calculations, but I was always told that because of the yield control formula that you wouldn't see huge fluctuations in property tax. But like I said, I don't know much about this veterans exemption to know what impact it would have on the city. So just something to keep in mind.
What is our current 1/12 reserve amount? And how many twelfths do we have, I guess?
So we're currently required to have 627,652. So I know the commission has. What was that, Lindy?
You reported what we had last meeting.
Yeah, so we base it on our current budgeted expenditures. So our 1/12 requirement is 627,652.
We have that, correct?
Yeah, I'm asking how many twelfths we have.
I said about 4 or 5. Well, if you count the CD, because.
Yeah, I was gonna say whether or not we want to count the CD. I'd say we're closer to 4 to 5 twelfths.
If we take 5 million divided by 627, it's 7.9. So is that closer to 7 twelfths? Or am I doing something wrong with the math?
Let me see. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, once we get through this fiscal year, I think we'll be closer to 5 twelfths.
We'll be looking to spend 1/12 of that, 2/12.
And we'll certainly, we're still working on our investment policy, but we do hope to come back to the commission maybe with some recommendations for additional investment of reserve funds.
I know in the past we've discussed keeping, we have to keep the 1/12. We don't want it to get too high because then we don't look like we need money and we always want to get our capital outlay and whatnot. So that's where I'm going with the question is how many twelfths reserve are we getting? Because last year we had, or the year before, quite a bit, and so we were trying to spend down that reserve a little bit.
Well, Commissioner, unfortunately, at least in my case, haven't been real successful. I'm gonna request some carryover of, I gave up some of the parts money for the City Hall project. I have 100,000 there and 100,000 quality of life match that I'd say at least 65% or more is gonna need to carry into the next fiscal year because I just won't be able to get it done.
Yeah, so unfortunately, of the 1.3 that the commission approved for this year's budget, like Jason said, we haven't, including even some of the abatement expense, we just haven't really been able to accomplish some of those things that were in that list. So we didn't really hit general fund reserves as heavily as we had anticipated.
But to that point, it's upcoming. Because like the small bridges, we don't have a hard number yet what that's gonna be.
No, I mean, we're anticipating FY '26 to be busy. I would have hoped to have a crack fill project right now, but bidders are scarce, contractors are scarce, materials are even more scarce. It's harder to spend money now than at any point that I've ever experienced it, even in the middle of COVID. The money that's out there has a lot of people locked up and they're unwilling to travel remotely right now.
We're seeing that in the home renovation program that North Central's trying to do, cannot find contractors.
We just need to resell ourselves as the island of Raton.
I guess yesterday was actually our deadline for audit services, and so I guess I can let the commission know that we didn't receive any proposals. So I think what my strategy will be is to go ahead and let the other communities award their contracts, and then we'll put that out there again And then hopefully the firms that didn't get awarded a contract will be a little hungry for business. In looking at the state auditor's IPA list, it just seems like there's less and less firms. And I think what's happened over the years is large firms like Carr, Riggs, and Ingram have bought up a lot of the littler firms.
And that's the issue I'm seeing with, with aging. All of our smaller providers can't find somebody to do their audit. Nobody will do their audit because they're too small.
Yeah.
So,
So this is really the first year that we've never received any proposals, but I know even our existing firms said they were going to have to evaluate their current workload.
I think in the past budget discussions, Mayor Pro Tem's point, we've always kept that 3 to 412 in mind. Keep that on hand.
Kind of a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
My only request would be that as there's so much, as we look at projects and whatnot, and I know we're at capacity in a lot of our staff with projects, but that we maintain some of the general fund reserve, perhaps in the Parks Department for matching funds, because there's a lot of recreation money out there, and we've been trying to work on parks and trails and have a couple projects going, so making sure that we just have some matching fund availability for that kind of project in the next fiscal year.
Another ongoing project we have is the depot. It's really not listed here anywhere, but if we're awarded Main Street funds, the match could be pretty significant on that as well.
Like that's where we get the most bang for our buck, is matching grant money right now. It's just a good climate for grants, and looking at this, it's not a surprise. This is huge.
So I think for today's discussion, definitely because it's the largest impact on the budget, is the salaries. I don't know if you can give me some sort of direction then as I build those personnel schedules. When I bring the draft budget back to you, then we'll have some hard numbers to look at.
If we could see, or I shouldn't say we, but if we could break it down as to like management versus bottom line employees by department. You know, because I'm kind of like Jason. I mean, we need to probably phase this in to bring our bottom up. Because what I'm nervous about is these guys retire out of this. How are we supposed to recruit?
I think you could say that across the board, though. That's for all departments.
Right.
I mean, we're having
Small town
trouble
America.
recruiting police, we're having trouble recruiting fire. And, you know, even the non-union jobs are, you know, getting difficult to fill.
Right.
I can tell you in the non-union employees, I only have 4 or 5 that are making less than 41,000. That's non-union.
Mm-hmm.
Very comfortable with the 5% for the non-union, and I know our union contracts are locked in at that, so we don't, you know, that's not something we would discuss today. But.
Well, and the beauty of those having negotiated at least part of those 3 contracts is they took the 10 up front to front load the deal, but they're 14 over 3. You know, management has probably never had a 3-year, but they were 14 over 3. So, I mean, it kind of evens out over time of 4 last year, 5 this year. There's some equity in that, you know, amongst these guys. And there is sometimes room for merit. You know, we have people retire out and salaries drop and we redistribute those salaries. So, and we do some of that in non-budget time. The struggle is in year 3 of a 10-2-2 union contract. The 2 is a pretty small hit, and then you're like that. And I think, you know, the joy of the 10% raise has already kind of worn off. The governor is hitting the state at higher levels than we are already, so we're always the small fish. That's just, you know, whether it's police or public works, there's always an organization overpaying their talking.
Yeah, I think we have to go the maximum you can and still fit it in the budget.
And that's where, at the cost of benefits and that, on the school board, I think we just took a 10% health insurance hit, a 16% liability hit. So, those numbers are probably right where we're gonna fall when they report them to you. That's why paying less people more money makes sense to me. Even overtime, for that matter, is still, a benefit package costs our employees significantly, but 80% that we're carrying, that's about an $18,000 hit for a family plan.
Yeah, so keep in mind, these percentages that we're talking about do not include any increase to payroll tax, PERA, or the retiree health contributions. So the percent increase will adjust those figures across the board as well.
Well, like Mayor Pro Tem said, and I think Commissioner Honeyfield's on the same page, I'm comfortable with the 5%. I'm not speaking for the rest of the commission, but I think we're all in.
I just said that.
I think
Yeah,
you
she
did, didn't you?
Well, then that'll help me build the personnel schedule, and then if it looks to be a problem when we review the first draft, then we would adjust down.
Give
if
Jason
needed.
a cut.
I don't just say it if I don't mean it. I'm all right, but
More jam.
I'll give you a first round pick.
So did you want to discuss a little bit further some of the projects or how you would like to utilize some of the additional reserves? Do we have time or?
You probably have time. I'm gonna have to cut out here in a minute. I've got a conference call with the cabinet secretary, so.
Or maybe that could be everybody's homework
It's good to think about.
for the next commission meeting.
It'd be great if we could have a list of what the city's priorities are for those projects to look at and discuss. Like, are we prioritizing abatement again? Like, what's left over that you think is not gonna happen? And, we've talked about housing projects, we've talked about so many different things, priority-wise.
And I don't know, would that be more the minutes from the meeting that we had for
Yeah.
planning?
Yeah.
That'd be good, yeah.
Okay.
Justice, any other comments, any?
There are a couple things that I know we have discussed. They could be put off another year. For example, I would like to get a couple more police cameras. That's going to be about $100,000 hit, but, that can certainly, we can certainly put that off. We're 2 years out on the ambulance,
Yes.
so we're 2 years out on an ambulance. I'm trying to think, any of the department heads, anything major next year that we need to discuss?
Can I ask an off-subject question real quick to Chief Garcia?
Yes, sir.
What's the effectiveness of our cameras? Have you had any kind of feedback on that?
They're good force multipliers. Once we put them in an area, there are several requests of their.
Sure.
The area it leaves, it slowly builds.
I think what would be helpful though is citywide security, more along the level we used to have. Like, I would love to have Chief move the camera to the ball field, but that's not realistic for them to live there, but whenever they're not there, we have problems, people hanging out in dark spots. So, it might be as easy as Wi-Fi and more camera systems, but I think we are blind in too many of my facilities. I think the aquatic center has an outdated system, the convention center, visitor center. My two shops have $500 Walmart camera systems that work really great, 12 cameras, send notifications to my phone. But all of our systems seem to have been purchased at the same time at most buildings, and they are low functioning or not functioning. And more would be better across the board on that.
I guess one of the questions I have on that, kind of throw it back on the city. There are some private and public entities that have security systems such, I mean, is there a way if the city funded some of theirs that the police department could tap those? Because I know I have to pay for one for motor vehicle and all, but I'm sure that one's not up to the caliber that Johnny needs to actually be able to use, but
I would have to look into that.
do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, no,
it would, to Johnny's point, it's kind of a force multiplier, and they're discreet. People don't know they're there most of the time.
Right.
Somewhere around 10 years ago, we had talked about a potential grant program to fund private DVRs. I think we ran into an anti-donation issue or something like that. But I don't know if we allocated funds to an organization like Crime Stoppers, if there's a workaround. But even if it was $5,000 a year and only 12 systems went online, I mean, I'm sure it would be handy, you know, to be able to full footage. And a lot of these systems have come down in price right now.
I think it was Hobbs who, and I think they went through Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, they've got a nice.
They have a really
setup.
nice setup.
It's a citywide coverage type thing.
That's a great idea.
I'd like to see, more coverage on First, Second, Third Street, Goat Hill, the high school. There's several places all over town. Over by the aquatic center. We could certainly use cameras in a number of places.
Yes.
And again, they're a great force multiplier, and they're also a great deterrent.
Other question I had was, how many Flight for Lives are we still sending out of Raton?
More than I knew, because now where I live,
You hear us.
they are constant.
It's constant, it's a lot.
Wow.
I don't know, I still advocate, it'd be nice if we were hauling, utilizing the ambulances instead of letting somebody else from out of state picking that up.
I think,
You want to speak to that, Chief?
yeah, I mean,
So in communications with doctor in charge of the ER, he has in the past 3 weeks, he has let me know that since there has been more flights, it's not just people or citizens from the proper of Raton. The acuity level meets their criteria to fly. So we are in communications with that. We have been for quite a while now, especially in the past 3 weeks when it was brought up. And he has put out memos to the staff to identify, to make sure they're not just sending something on flight to get them out, they're hitting appropriate levels on their side.
it's how severe, how acute their problem is.
Well, I guess, because this is the complaint that I hear all the time, the family beat the airplane to whatever or hospital they're sending them to. And I know we can haul them cheaper, faster, smoother, more economical than
There
an
again,
airplane flying one way empty.
Chief can confirm or deny, but there's a protocol to follow on when they call.
Correct. Internally, there is a set protocol from the ER and then another set of protocol off the floor. And if they're hitting their acuity level and making that arrangement, I can't tell a doctor to stop and we'll take it on the ground. But the communication is there and we've asked for justification reasons why. Case in point, last week we sent 4 cruise fields, as we call them, for fixed wing to the airport. And we could have easily transported them. So I'm asking for the justification and chart review will happen next month. And the doctor is doing his part to vet if there were necessity or they were just, hey, just send them flying. And the communication's always been there with our two agencies. Very seldomly do we tell them we cannot facilitate. We're past that point with staffing. There may be delay in the fact of, hey, we've got an incident going on. We'll free up as 2 staff to go ahead and let it go on the ground, but we're past the point of telling them, no, we cannot facilitate ground transports. We've been out of that for about 2 years now.
One story I'll just relate. Gal showed up at the ER with a broken arm. We couldn't set that. They were gonna fly her to Santa Fe, and fortunately, the gal had worked for the hospital and said no. Told her brother to take it to Trinidad. But I mean, that's pretty sad when Band-Aids, hydrogen peroxide, ear swabs is what we administer out here.
I think it's a lot more complex than that.
I'm going to cede the gavel over to the Mayor Pro Tem. I have got to go make this call. Thank you all for attending.
Is your comment on the budget or?
No, on his comment. When I was at the hospital, they were going to cut my throat and they called their ambulance and I said I wanted a second opinion. And they called in another doctor and he was able to give me an injection. And so we can't, I think family can't say no.
Yeah, there's different variations to everything, and advocacy for the patient and the patient having the right to refuse either medical treatment and or flight and seek alternative means, whether it's a broken arm and family can transport themselves, they can still transport them to them, or they stay in the place and then, like she mentioned, have a doctor seek a secondary opinion, whether it's from that facility, from the wing next door, or the individual can choose to go to another facility for a second opinion. So to answer that question, yes, communications are happening, and to the point even more so of our medical director, who we work under and are guided by, is in this loop also to vet and make sure.
I mean, it's kind of coming into an economic factor for us because of this situation out here, because I think as folks get older and their health issues are more prevalent, it's like, do we even live here? Because of that situation south of town.
You know, I have to just remind you that, you know, you have to talk to the hospital board for these types of questions. We
I know,
have
but I mean, it
no
just keeps
authority.
getting successively worse as time goes on.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree with that. I just don't think we can't, well, maybe, sorry, I can understand your concerns, but that's not something we can solve.
Right.
So I think talking to the hospital board is a great
Right.
suggestion. Any other comments related to the budget? Michael, did you have anything else for us that we need to consider?
No, this was a very meaningful discussion, and it gives me a lot to work with and bring a good draft to you at the next commission meeting.
Mr. Mistis, anything else?
Not for me.
Commissioner Honeyfield? Commissioner Giacomo? Commissioner Schuster? Okay. If nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned.